Welcome back to LocaCarnivore, the hunting, guns, and outdoor adventure channel for smart people, because you're smart because you're watching us. You'll forgive my attire. I just got back from a pre-hunting season scouting mission, and I've got my bear chest rig on. We'll give you a card to the video that shows you how to make this, but just wanted to take a couple of quick minutes and walk you through something that a number of viewers have pointed out and have been curious about. That is why we don't use a chronograph when we're doing our ballistics shell tests. We have three reasons why we don't use a chronograph on our ballistics shell tests, and we're going to show you, we're going to talk about each one here individually. Before we get started though, as always, got to do the public service part of it. As you know, need you to like this video, we need you to subscribe, we need you to ring that little bell down there. Please give us your comments. Those are very valuable to us. In fact, it gave us the idea for doing this video, for example. We want to be responsive to you, the viewer. We think you're important, and we know your opinions are important to us. Don't forget to also support us on Patreon. The link's down in the description. Go over to our website, LocaCarnivore. The link's also down in the description. You can find some very interesting content there as well. We'd appreciate your support there. Also, don't forget to share this video. I mean, let's just put this thing out everywhere. If you love it, share it. If you hate it, share it. I mean, as Oscar Wilde said, it doesn't matter what they're saying about you as long as they're saying something, so we'd appreciate it. So put some legs on this little bad boy and let's make it go viral, okay? All right, enough said of that. Let's get into the meat of this thing. Right, so reason number three of the three that we don't chronograph our gel tests is, frankly, in my opinion, your opinion may differ, your mileage may vary, as they say, but in my opinion, watching chronograph tests are boring. There's nothing more tedious than watching somebody go, bang, 521, bang, 2,500 million, 6,000 and gazillion. Bang, and on and on and on. I'm sorry if you guys do that in your videos. That's fine if your audience likes it. If you like it, to watch it, there's plenty of places you can get that kind of treatment. So we just don't put it on there. We don't want to waste your time. We don't want to put the boring stuff in. Doing these videos, in my opinion, I'm also a writer, is a lot like doing short fiction. You pick one particular problem, you stick to that, and you put nothing in the video, just like in a story, that doesn't advance the plot or the characters. So we want to make sure that we're not wasting your time, because again, you're smart, and smart people don't like their time wasted. We want to give you the information you need, and then get on with it so you can get on with your day. Okay, the second reason that we don't chronograph our gel tests is, quite frankly, chronographs lie. And those are the exact words that one of the technical representatives at Nosler Bullets once told me when we were having a very interesting phone conversation. By the way, the fabulous people over there, no, I'm not shilling for them, don't have any relationship with Nosler, just like their bullets, and their technical people are top-notch. They will spend whatever amount of time you need to get your problem solved. So enough of that infomercial for them. But basically, chronographs lie. And that is because each chronograph is a unique instrument, and each chronograph session, each shot across a chronograph is a unique event in that particular measuring instrument's life. And they have different calibrations. There are so many factors that can influence a chronograph. There is the atmospheric conditions, the lighting especially, whether you're using the sky screens over the top or you're not using the sky screens. I've seen some people invert their chronographs. You just have to play around with each one to make sure you get the right, to make sure you're getting a reasonably accurate measurement. It's got to make some degree of sense to you. Like if you shoot a 30-06 and it's showing, 7,000 feet per second, that's probably not right. So you just have to experiment. And so each chronograph, and these are not ultra precise measuring instruments either. The ones that you and I buy off the shelf, I don't know what the error is built into them. I don't know what the tolerance percentage is, but my guess is it's probably at least several percent. So even 3 or 4% difference, especially on a handgun round like we're testing on our gel test, That's a relatively significant number of feet per second. And so, again, the chronograph is not a reliable enough instrument. If you want reliable velocities, you have to go to Doppler radar. And up until recently, that was extremely expensive equipment. The only people that could afford it were the ammunition and the bullet manufacturers. I mean, we're talking tens of thousands, if not more, dollars for a proper Doppler radar setup. Now I've seen some that are a lot more approachable, but still it's way beyond our budget. And of course, if you would support us enough on Patreon, we could get some money and we could go and buy a Doppler radar, and then maybe we could start doing more accurate chronographing on their gel tests. I might be willing to do it then. But frankly, the chronograph just doesn't, it's not an accurate enough instrument to give you meaningful information and meaningful data. So we just don't use it from that perspective either. Right, and the very number one reason why we don't use the chronographs, and this is somewhat related to the error that's built into chronographs and the imprecision of those measuring devices, but frankly, doing chronograph measurements on a gel test is basically meaningless. You're not measuring what you're there to measure, and one of the most basic, careful, science is about to approach here, so if you don't like science, you can tune off and then come back later for our conclusion. But there is going to be science here, so prepare yourselves. Now, for all those smart people who understand science and are still with us, let's continue on with the subject. Basically, when we're doing a gel test, we're only measuring one thing, and that is what happens when the bullet hits the test media. How does the bullet perform? That's the only reason we're doing that gel test, at least for us. And the impact velocity, while it might be interesting from a geek standpoint, but it really doesn't accomplish anything. It doesn't move you forward in your progress. And anybody who knows anything about the basic construction of scientific experiments knows that you want to reduce all the variables so that you're only measuring one part of the phenomenon, if you can possibly do that. So you narrow it down so that the only thing that's changing is that one variable that you're looking at. And therefore, you can measure that variable and come to hopefully some degree of an accurate conclusion as to what's going on based on the theoretical model that you're trying to test. And what are we testing when it comes to gel tests? What's the theory we're testing? We're testing whether or not that bullet is going to have a cause sufficient damage in tissue, and the gel block is just an analog for that tissue. It's a consistent test medium that lets us measure across different loads and everything with having a baseline that's repeatable and predictable. So that's what we're there for, and that's why we're doing that. So if you introduce the chronograph data, it's pretty meaningless, because let's face it, if bullet A can induce a properly incapacitating wound at 500 feet per second, what does it matter if you measure at 1,000 feet, if you bump it up to 1,000 feet per second? It's irrelevant. So it doesn't matter if it's doing 200 feet per second or 2,000 feet per second. What only matters on the gel test is what the bullet does in the test media. Does the bullet expand properly? Does it penetrate sufficiently? Does it lose mass? Does it break apart? Does it create additional wound tracks? I mean, all these things, that's what we're looking for. And so the impact velocity would be interesting if we were designing the bullet, but we're not here to engineer the bullet. We're just simply testing the end product that a lot of really smart people with 50-pound heads stayed up late and worked hard on to design. We're testing if what we're testing is in the field with a gelatin block that's a repeatable test media, does it do what we want it to do? Does it perform correctly? And if it does, great. If it doesn't, that's also a result. We need to know that. But we don't need to know the impact velocity to understand that concept at all. So again, the number one reason we don't use the chronographs is for impact velocities or even muzzle velocities for the gel tests. It's meaningless data. It's just data for the sake of data. And if you like that sort of thing, that's fine. Get your own YouTube channel, get some bunch of gel blocks, get a chronograph, and have at it and show the rest of us how it's done. But for our testing purposes, we're not going to bore you with the chronograph shooting, and we're also going to make sure that we don't introduce any further error into the experiment based on instrumentation errors that can be inherent with chronographs. And 3, we want to measure one thing and one thing only, and that's what the bullet does when it hits the test medium. So there you have it in a nutshell. That's why we don't chronograph when we do our gel tests. Hopefully that's sufficient for you. I think we have a good approach, we have good methodology. So thank you for spending your time with us here at LocaCarnivore. Remember, we're the hunting, guns, and outdoor adventure channel for smart people. As always, stay aware, stay safe, be kind, and we'll see you next time on LocaCarnivore.